and then we get funding, pardon me, if we take option 2 and then we get funding, do we have the option of taking roundabouts out at that time, or are we committed to the roundabouts?
If it comes from the feds, it would filter through regional transportation. So there's X amount of projects that are identified, high priority projects, whatever it may be. So if we don't obligate those dollars, they would be kicked back into the RTC pool to be utilized in Southwest Washington. I think what you're alluding to is changing the design
Yes.
as far as an intersection improvement, something above and beyond a highway roundabout.
Yes.
I would have to look into that with RTC. But we would not be obligated if we got design right-of-way dollars for highway roundabouts. And at that point, we didn't want to move forward with design. We would formally approach RTC and let them know that that'll be kicked back into the Southwest region for other projects that are close to design, right-of-way, or construction.
So, once the design stage is hit, the funding comes, we're committed to designing a roundabout.
If we're successful in getting the funding,
Yes.
if we obligate the dollars to move forward. So there's another opportunity to either obligate the funds to move forward with design and right-of-way acquisition and engineering, or approaching RTC and requesting that those funds go back into the Southwest Washington pot for all the partners.
So it's roundabouts or lose the funds.
I don't believe so, and correct me if I'm wrong. The reason I say that, Dave, is from the very recent, in the last 3 years, 4 years, on the design of Phase 1 itself. Phase 1 as it originally stood, and the improvements that were going to happen at Union, along 8th Street, that type of stuff. Even after the funding was approved and went from 40 to 57 to $58 million, I think if you talk to WashDOT, they will tell you that that was a very contentious process that the city of Washougal and the port was extremely involved in, and there were numerous changes and alterations to that entire design that has pushed it to today's date of getting that project underway. If that same process is held in place, I don't believe it's roundabouts or anything. I believe it's a question of intersection alterations and changes and upgrades of some sort. There is also a possibility, and one that we haven't brought forward this evening. You could approve option 2 and make sure that we stay in our place in line. And internally, we can try and identify some funding and resources to come up with an option that isn't roundabouts, but are highway interchange improvements, and submit those to RTC and to Department of Transportation and to all of the other partners out there to take the place of that. But again, it's going to be on our dime to do that. You've already got an estimation of what it cost before to do that because the city fully funded that. But that certainly is an option that we've got.
Okay, well, based on that, much has been made about keeping our place in line. But I'm not in favor of keeping our place in line for an interim solution, which not only doesn't solve the problem, I think it's unjustified in terms of the accident and safety statistics we've got. And it, in fact, I believe, brings with it problems we don't have at this time. So I would move that we adopt option 3.
We've got a current motion on the floor.
Thank you.
Molly?
I would just like to reference us all to our E Street project. Now, I know the funding sources are totally different, but we did have a roundabout in our conceptual design for E Street, and it was through the grace of RTC and some of our state agencies that allowed us to alter that design and have intersection improvements there in lieu of a roundabout, and still be funded for CMAQ and some of the other, the TIB grants. And so my real concern here is that even if Trevor is correct, and some portion of federal funding dollars would be obligated on a roundabout, If we chose not to accept that, we would be in no worse position than we would be with option 3. We would be back to our full interchange option.
Rod,
Well,
I think I've been catching everybody in order, so.
not quite, but close.
Okay.
Point of
I'm gonna-
information, point of information, what is the motion on the floor?
Motion on the floor is to adopt the staff recommendations.
And so the options we'll add as an amendment if we want option blah, blah, blah.
That's,
Is
that's
that
what I
correct?
wanted to do, thank you.
Okay.
Rod.
Commissioner Lampkin, would you stand up, please? What happens if you came to the podium and asked that we try to work on this plan for that 100 acres out there?
Yes.
If we drop this off and remove ourselves from the order of potential funding, doesn't that shoot down your ideas of trying to get something in place for that 100 acres and the jobs?
Well, I think, again, I'm not really fully aware of the process that has gone on before. But I think, John, you indicated that it's only been 2 years since we've asked for the roundabout. So if we set ourselves back 2 years, instead of 2023 would be at 2025. I think really the thing is, somehow, if we can earmark these dollars, if we can earmark ourselves at a point in time and say, this is where we are, and together we work on this thing and we understand what it is that in fact we really do need, then maybe we can in fact achieve something at a more accelerated rate. I don't know. I think it's going to take a real cohesive effort on the part of the two cities and the port to get ourselves recognized. Again, we're not on the I-5 corridor. And, East County just doesn't get hurt. So I think if we promote it from increasing available land for jobs, for making this thing have some economic viability to it, we might have a better shot of getting it done. So whatever the council decides, I think, it has to be that we're moving forward and that there is some level of flexibility. So,
Thank you.
Trevor, roundabouts went in 4 years ago?
4 years, approached in 2006 and formally amended into the Metropolitan in 07.
So,
John?
just a couple of things. I would remind Councilmember Costin that the money for the roundabout went away when we got rid of the roundabout. It didn't stick in the project. So because and the reason because that was the case was because it so changed and so altered the program, the project as a whole, that it lost the environmental reasons that they were wanting the roundabout in there. And so what I'm saying, huh?
Those funds stayed in the project.
Yeah.
The stimulus funds?
Yep, they stayed in the project. The
CMAQ project.
The only money that was basically reduced out of the construction budget when the roundabout went about was the unfunded $2 million portion that nobody identified, nobody stepped to the plate for.
Expenses are reduced.
All the rest of the funding that was.
So that $2 million though was going for the roundabout.
But that,
Yeah.
but that was money that